This is another of our series of conversations on innovations in science, and particularly in the medical field. And it's in conjunction with the Institute for Medical Research, Israel, Canada, and our guest is Ehud. It's Ehud Cohen,
yes,
right?
That's correct.
Welcome to the show. You're in biochemistry and molecular biology.
You can say so, yeah.
Okay. Now, in your field, you're doing work on aging, but before we get into this, one of the things I've noticed in interviews here is most of the education is done, as you did, all at Hebrew University. You got your first, second, and third degree here, right in your doctorate, and then you go off and do your postdoc in the States or somewhere else. Is that a general pattern in Israel?
It is. I'm not sure that most people stick to one institute and do all 3 degrees in one place, but it's very typical that after completing the PhD, scientists are going abroad for a postdoctoral fellowship in order to be exposed to new techniques, new approaches, and study new developments and new things that they can bring here. So going abroad after the PhD is very typical. Sticking to the same institute for all 3 degrees, I'm not sure, but that's what I've done.
Yeah. But the other factor I've noticed is in your lab, are there any postdocs in your lab?
Yes. There is one, and there is a second one who's going to join later this year. But it's true that we don't have many postdocs in the Hebrew U compared to American institutes.
That's what I was surprised about. You see, you do your undergraduate training here, your graduate training here, and go abroad for your postdocs. Most people go to several institutions, to their PhD, but every institution usually has a significant number of postdocs. So I would think that one of the big things is to get funding for your postdocs here.
This is correct, but I think there is some historical aspects, because I would say maybe a decade or 2 decades ago there was a significant difference between the capabilities of the institutes here and in the United States. But I think that this gap is being closed in the recent years, and maybe in the future people would stay here for postdocs in here as well, rather than going abroad. Still, at the moment, I think that most people who want to develop their career and stay in academia, they're still going abroad.
Well, I think it's great to go abroad, but I think Chinese students and students from all over the world should come here, because you're now at the forefront in many areas of science. But there doesn't seem to be the funding for the postdocs to do that.
That's correct. Funding is one problem, and still, I think, because, as I mentioned before, because of historical reasons, institutes like to hire people who spend time abroad. I think that it should change in the future.
Now, you're doing work on aging, and there's this general formula that I read in your papers, and it's not just your research, but generally, that aging is genetically related. But if somebody reads that, it could mean many things. That it's you're programmed to die or something like that, or you're specifically programmed to die at a specific time, or specific kinds of diseases are going to kill you off, or that kind of thing. What's your general take on that, and what's your innovation in that area?
So first, aging is a very complex process, and it has several aspects. Some of those aspects are stochastic. For example, exposure to chemicals or irradiation in the environment and so on. But there are genetic regulated pathways which regulate the aging process. It was shown about 17 years ago in 1993 for the first time that by hitting specific genes, the lifespan of worms can be extended, doubled, and even tripled.
So if we got heated up, I mean, there's a possibility we could live 3 times as long?
As
old as Abraham?
No, I'm talking about
worms.
First, I'm talking about worms, where the lifespan is way more flexible compared to mammals. But I'm talking about the specific signaling pathway of the insulin IGF hormones. Now, if you reduce the activity of this pathway, you can achieve much longer lifespan in worms. Interestingly, later on it was shown to be true for mice as well, And in the last 2 years, there were papers coming out claiming that in a centenarians population, people who live more than 100 years, there is a high correlation between the longevity and specific mutation in this pathway. So
really?
Apparently, the longevity mechanism is conserved from worms to human beings.
So they have a gene that makes them live over 100.
They have actually a mutation which either make one gene work or one gene product less active, or a different one which is downstream working, being more active. And that actually is correlated, at least correlated with longevity at the level of human beings. At the level of mice, you can hit specific genes and extend lifespan.
I see.
Yeah. So you ask about my aspect about the aging. So I'm basically a cell biologist of protein aggregation. That's what I've done during my PhD. And I was interested in why genetic cases of neurodegenerative disorders, such as familial Alzheimer's, familial Parkinson's, onset late in life. Typically, these patients are diagnosed around their 50s or late 40s even sometimes. And there's a very basic and important question is where the disease is for 4 decades. The mutation is there, the proteins which aggregate are there, and still nothing happens for 4 decades. And that's the major observation I came with to the aging field, asking whether the aging process play an active role enabling these disorders to onset late in life.
We'll take a break and we'll come back to continue this discussion about the relationship between aging and Alzheimer's, etc.
Okay, sounds good.